The COVID-19 pandemic has left the entire tourism industry at a standstill. Cruise ships can't set sail, with very few people willing to travel at this time. Coupled with worldwide travel restrictions, the cruise industry is struggling to stay afloat. What's happening to this previously thriving multi-billion-dollar industry? Why was it so hard hit by the pandemic, and why isn't it sailing the high seas yet? Let's find out. Cruise ships are expensive to maintain. Ocean liners are not just large boats meant to transport people. They are essentially floating hotels. When you book a cruise, it's like taking a long vacation at sea. Unlike in an airplane, you're not stuck in a small cabin just sitting down almost the entire flight. In a cruise ship, you are free to explore the different areas of the ship the whole time you're at sea. And unlike a plane where you share the cabin with dozens of passengers, you can get a room all to yourself in a cruise ship. With all of the amenities inside a ship, it takes a lot more time, effort, and money to keep it running. Think of how much it takes to maintain a luxury hotel. Now, combine that with what it takes to keep a ship in good shape. That's a lot of people doing a lot of work. That also means the cruise companies need to spend a lot of money to keep their darling ships in tip-top shape. Who foots the bill for maintaining a cruise liner? The passengers, of course. That's why the cruise tickets are expensive. On average, ticket prices start at $79 per person per day. The price can easily go up if you want to enjoy more luxurious amenities, and most cruise ships have gyms, spas, bars, restaurants, pools, theaters, and other activity and entertainment areas. Once everything adds up, the cost of an entire cruise package can easily climb to $1,000 or more. But with passenger capacities of 3,000 people or more, cruise ships can easily pay for their own operational expenses. Let's say those 3,000 people pay $1,000 each for a single voyage. That's $3 million already, which is more than enough to cover the ship's operating costs. Surely other people would pay more, so the ship would earn more than $3 million for that trip alone. Then COVID came. When the COVID-19 pandemic rocked the world early in 2020, almost everything had to stop. Countries closed off their borders everywhere. Travel was restricted. Foreign entries to many countries were banned. Even returning residents faced tough screening measures. As the coronavirus did not let up, the world began to realize that only one thing could stop it from spreading. Stay home, avoid contact with other people. That meant any travel plans were canceled indefinitely. Tourism is out of the question as countries scrambled to keep COVID numbers down. With tourism shut down, the whole transportation industry suffered as well. Airlines had to ground their planes, no one went on tourist buses, and cruise ships similarly had to remain in port. The cruise industry reported massive losses in the past year. Carnival Cruise Line, the world's largest cruise ship company, tallied a whopping $10.2 billion in net losses for 2020 alone. They began losing business in March of that year when most countries started mass lockdowns and stay-at-home orders. Carnival had zero passenger revenue for the rest of the year. They survived by selling off some of their ships, selling shares of stock, and taking out loans. The company managed to stay afloat. By the end of 2020, they reported having a reserve of $9.5 billion in cash. Even now, with the abundance of vaccinations going on, people are still reluctant to set sail. People are afraid they might get stuck on a ship if any of their fellow passengers test positive. This has already happened with the Diamond Princess back in February of 2020. On board that ship, only one passenger who had COVID triggered the spread of the virus to the entire cruise liner. There were 3,600 passengers on the Diamond Princess, and 700 of them tested positive. As a result, the entire ship went into quarantine for 6 whole weeks. Passengers were restricted to their cabins. Later, 7 of the infected passengers died. Diamond was not the only princess who made headlines last year. Another ship, called the Ruby Princess, had a number of infected passengers on board when it docked in Sydney, Australia in March of 2020. But everyone was allowed to disembark. causing a wave of 900 infections and 28 deaths. Because of these stories, cruise ships have been painted as hotbeds of superspreader events. People are no longer comfortable going on pleasure cruises. Travelers have other concerns than just getting COVID on board, though. Many of them say they don't trust that cruise lines are transparent about their health and safety protocols. Also, a lot of them harbor doubts if cruise lines would take care of them if any problems arise on board. A large percentage of them mentioned they were no longer confident about taking a cruise because of the pandemic. All of these concerns have hit the cruise industry hard. Carnival remains optimistic, though, even if they're expecting low passenger numbers in 2021. According to CEO Arnold Donald, the company is working to have all of their ships operational by the end of the year. They also hope that the pace of vaccinations will help them recover. What will it take for the cruise industry to sail again? These days, passengers, even avid travelers, are less confident about the safety of cruising. With that, cruise lines have a lot of heavy lifting to do. They need to reassure their clients that it would be safe to set sail once again. In a world still being ravaged by COVID-19 and its variants, health protocols are crucial. Already a few cruise ships are taking the lead. One of them is the ocean liner MSC Grandiosa. It is the first large cruise ship to ply the Mediterranean Sea since the shutdown of the cruise industry. Passengers were tested for COVID first before they were allowed to step on board. Similarly, the Grandiosa's crew are regularly tested. This and other strict measures accompany the ship's 7-day voyage from Italy to Malta. If this journey proceeds with no infections, it may well inspire other cruise liners to follow suit. Cruise ship setting sail again addresses the supply side of things. How about the demand side? What could cruise operators do to restore confidence in the industry? A lot of solutions are being proposed. One of them is stringent health screening of passengers as well as testing before embarking. Another is setting strict schedules for passenger arrival at ports. The Grandiosa in particular has some high-tech options in place on board the vessel to curb the spread of the virus. Passengers are given a wristband for contactless payments, opening of cabin doors, and if needed, for contact tracing. The fewer things passengers touch, the better. So these measures would be helpful. As for inspiring confidence in clients who are yet to book tickets, cruise lines have a lot of work to do. Making tickets cheaper is one thing, and it's an easy way to entice people to go on cruises again. But that's not the only thing that will convince them. More concrete protocols, like physical distancing, reducing the number of guests per voyage, and reducing the number of people allowed in activity areas, are also necessary. More than that, cruise operators will have to address how travelers perceive risk, which influences their holiday decisions a lot. Prospective cruisers still have questions like, what if someone gets infected on board? Will we all be stuck in the ship? How would you prevent anyone who may have COVID from boarding the ship? How will you help us if an outbreak happens on board? These and other questions remain on travelers' minds. With incidents such as the Ruby Princess mishap, would-be cruisers are on their toes whether they can trust cruise lines or not. They demand more honesty and accountability from cruise companies. On the bright side, cruisers are historically known to be loyal customers. They return to sailing the seven seas even after major outbreaks and disasters. If the sinking of the Titanic did not stop travelers from cruising again, cruise companies are confident that COVID won't capsize their businesses for good. In summary, the cruise industry is experiencing their biggest challenge yet thanks to COVID-19. Restoring the faith of cruisers takes a lot of work, and cruise lines have to contend with reduced numbers of passengers this year and beyond. Even then, these companies are optimistic that they will survive. In the future, they hope that the industry will be back to its thriving state.